This also shows them as kind of flesh and blood, relatable people. You literally get to touch the past.
The Virginia Museum of History and Culture.
You know, it's a piece of a much larger historical story.
A landmark home to more than 9 million artifacts.
She clearly loved him dearly.
But none may be more personal than this.
But in one letter, he describes his love of flying to his parents, and he describes like being up in the air in the middle of blue sky.
Dr. Karen Sherry, the museum's senior curator, studies a collection of newspaper clippings and other memorabilia neatly assembled on 60 pages.
There are lots of cards, greeting cards in the scrapbook.
This book was created by Ruth Givings.
Whenever she saw mention of her son in the newspaper, she was sure to clip that out and add it to the scrapbook. A very proud mama.
Ruth was the mother of Clemenceau McAdoo Givings, who was born in 1919.
Clem has the distinction of being the first Black Richmonder to earn his wings as a Tuskegee Airman.
The Army Air Corps unit was made up of African-American fighter pilots in the segregated military during World War II.
He's the last one in this one.
Ruth snipped and saved.
We also have a slightly earlier document when he graduated from elementary school.
Capturing her son's life in black and white.
So we now start to get into Clem's military career.
From the momentous to the mundane.
His mother also kept his bus tickets from that visit.
The museum's collection also includes Clem's megaphone, a keepsake he used before graduating from Virginia Union University.
I think it has that kind of direct link to a historical figure, a direct link to the past, one that feels incredibly immediate.
While the scrapbook heralds her son's accomplishments, it also details Ruth's great loss.
When she was saving these items, clearly she probably never imagined that she would lose him at age 24.
On March 18, 1944, Second Lieutenant Givings experiences engine failure during a mission. The pilot ejects but drowns off the coast of Italy.
Givings, the latest of our group to meet his death, was perhaps the most unique personality among us.
The pilot is buried at Sicily Rome American Cemetery. He rests among 7,857 other heroes who gave their lives during the war.
He was being asked to serve his country, to sacrifice for a country that wasn't giving him full and equal citizenship rights. But he was still willing to make that ultimate sacrifice, and indeed he did.
Mrs. Givings even preserved the Western Union telegram that arrived at the family home at 100 East Leigh Street in Jackson Ward.
Here was a young man who faced the oppression of Jim Crow America, who had to fight to get the opportunities to serve as a Tuskegee Airman.
Dr. Sherry can identify with the pain Ruth Givings must have experienced. She lost her sister during the first Gulf War.
In a sad way, kind of heightens the tragedy that he was lost at such a young age, because this was clearly a young man who had ambitions, who was smart, who was a go-getter, who was going places.
A friend of the Givings donated the scrapbook to the museum many years ago.
So a lot of the newspaper clippings that make up the scrapbook are very brittle and very fragile.
These 80-plus-year-old pages are currently undergoing painstaking preservation at the museum.
This was clearly a labor of love for her, and you sense that immediately when you're standing in front of this object.
Dr. Sherry believes this artifact is not just a precious thread in the fabric of Virginia and American history.
It would not be stretching a point to call him a burst of flack.
It forever preserves the short life of a mother's only child who overcame obstacles so he could soar through the skies.
She recognized, not just on a personal level that her son's life and his service was important, but also on a national level for the history of our country.
Clemenceau McAdoo Givings was one of 84 Tuskegee Airmen who lost their lives during World War II. Mrs. Ruth Givings was given her son's Purple Heart in the years following the war. For Heroes Among Us, I'm Greg McQuade, CBS 6 News.